what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's DH Thorne here with our good friend Amy K, one of my friends and patrons, and she's been on our show before, and she was well received, and we had a good time, right? The last time you were on. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully everybody can hear us good. So this is delayed by about 30 seconds or so on my feed. So let me know if you guys can hear us okay, or if you can't, or if there's echoes or anything else. We usually have to do sound checks for the first minute of the feed. So everyone's saying hi, so apparently sees us. Someone's already asking me what that sigil is. I love when people ask me that question. What's that sigil? What's that sigil? What are all those letters? What does it mean? Oh my goodness. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just make sure it sounds good. What's up, everybody? What's up, Yepson? What's up, Cole Smith? What's up, Johan? I'm getting the thumbs up from my little sound engineer back there. So everyone can hear us good. So good afternoon, good evening, good night, everybody. This is our friend Amy K. Amy, introduce yourself for those who don't know.
I am Amy K.
That's all you need to know. She's Amy K.
Is that, yeah.
So you've been practicing magic off and on for a while, and you, of course, enjoy my work, and I've been enjoying what you've been doing on Facebook, just having fun putting out posts. I mean, you're not a professional mage or anything like that. You're just a person who lives this life, right?
Yeah, definitely. The last 16 years.
16 years, yeah. And the big thing that you wanted to talk about tonight had a lot to do. Let me turn down this music here, because I know the music's probably getting old real quick. Let me kill that. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I should have just let it drown out. Yeah, introduce yourself 3 times as an act of solidarity with L. True. Anybody who watched last week's stream, did you watch last week? Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself again, Amy, for those who just joined us.
Amy K again.
Amy K again. So now you've been, you've been home, and you've been, stuffed inside the starship, social distancing, just like the rest of us for a little while now. And have you had a chance to do any kind of magical work or anything else? Has it been mostly just life experience? What's been going on since everything closed down?
For me, it's been a lot of focusing on things I've let go just around the house, because I feel it's important to keep a clean area.
Yeah,
so
I hear that.
it helps with the energies. And I have a pretty small place, so my ritual chamber is my living room. Mm-hmm. So I have to make sure everything is
I definitely live that life. I definitely get it. And I am not a clean person by any stretch. Like, I'm like, like when you watch watch the old Gremlins movie, and they go to like the antique store in the beginning to like get the gremlin, to get the mogwai in the beginning. And it's all cluttered with stuff, and like, that's me. I'm like that. I'm like that guy. And if I could, that's how I'd live. Like, it would be dark and smoky, and there'd be cool relics all over the place. That's how I'd live my life. Like, screw clean. I hate clean.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a closet that I don't like to open. I'll just leave it at that.
The closet. Yeah. So anyway, guys, the main topic for tonight that we wanted to talk about was going to be mostly to do with, I think, spiritual manifestation, especially how subtle those things can be, and maybe we'll dissect that for a bit. We'll talk for like an hour or so, see where we go, and if we get bored, we'll talk about some other stuff. But I want to remind you guys that hopefully it's activated, but you don't have to feel pressured to use it. I do have the Super Chats button active. You can use that if you want to jump to the front of the line with your question. If you have a question or comment you want me to read out loud, either do a super chat or at least put it in bold. I will try to read any comment in bold, and I'll read any comment that's really interesting. So it's not a requirement. It's just up there for those of you who want to help us out. And Amy and I are going to be splitting whatever happens. There's no pressure at all whatsoever. So forget I even said it. Yeah, forget I even said it. I never said anything. It didn't happen. So Cole Smith asked a question first, which I'll explain briefly. What the sigil is. That sigil is the Trinity of Self. It is the main centerpiece of my style of magic. It's something that I sort of created. It's something I more or less set together over basically my lifetime, starting out with circles and triangles and figuring out what they mean. It is essentially a metaphor for the mind, body, and spirit, and how we are supposed to align this in our ritual actions so that we become a unified God being in our ritual practices. So I will be explaining this more, obviously, in some of my Patreon stuff, but it's also in my book. It's a very useful system. There's several people already watching the video who have used it, and they do like it. So that is, of course, available. So we can talk about that more later, though. We're more talking about the subject tonight. So manifestations, subtle manifestations, maybe hardcore, big-time manifestations. Let's start with the basic question. I'm going to ask you, because I'm always curious, how intense have you had spiritual manifestation? Has it always been subtle, or have you had anything that was really, and don't feel pressured to say yes. I mean, like, be honest, like, what kind of experience have you had? Have you had like big manifestations? Have you had just subtle stuff? And not, when I say just, it's not just, but I mean, has it been only that kind? Go ahead, talk. I'll shut up.
It'll be changes in anything from incense, smoke, to candle, like the candle flame, and I make absolutely sure that there's no fan going, the air conditioning's not going. It's just to make sure that there's no air that's pushing it around.
Some kind of interference.
And yeah, and I've gotten small manifestations that way. Mostly for me, it's an energy thing. Like it feels like the air gets really heavy, and that's when I know I'm tapped in.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, for me, it's like lucid dream states are where I can really get stuff done, and where I have been able to, and that has translated into my waking life.
Mm-hmm. Has it ever interrupted your waking life, like your everyday, just walking around, spirit shows up or something happens and you go, boom, I'm in the holodeck basically, or whatever it is? Have you ever had that happen in just, not outside of ritual, just walking around and living life?
I'll get, I guess, signs that either something is working that I've done, or the spirit I've called upon is doing something for me. Mm-hmm. But it's always really small. Even changes in my own behavior, I'll, all of a sudden say something or do something or act a certain way. Like, where did that come from? And then shortly after, I realize where it's coming from.
Right. It's very interesting how
typically what I asked for.
It's very interesting how especially like I'll be sitting there doing something, going to bed, brushing my teeth or something, and I'll be looking at myself in the mirror, and especially if the lights are down or something, and I'll just be like, uh-oh, and I just start talking to myself, and I try to remember everything I say because it gets interesting real quick. I think it's almost like schizophrenia. It's something like that where you can, sometimes it's almost, I don't want to say unwanted, but maybe unprovoked. You will have sudden manifestations. Spirits will show up either invocationally, possession-wise, or in your environment. Strange things will happen. You'll be walking around and say, I don't know, just an example, you'll say something to a spirit, you'll say, King Paimon, if you agree with what I'm saying, wouldn't that be, you'll say something like that in your own internal head. If you're here, King Paimon, could you, and you hear like a dog bark all of a sudden out of nowhere, or something weird will happen that's like right at the moment when, and it's always subtle. And I think that's a key. I think that's why I like this topic so much, is that when you said subtle manifestations, I think that's such an important word, because part of the skill, part of our practice, is to become able to notice those things without being superstitious and weird, because I think that's something that develops, right? And
you don't want to go looking for signs. Not everything is a sign. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you try to start obsessing over, be like is my magic working? Is it? And you can, like, if you stare at a tree long enough, you're going to see the shape you want to see.
It's true.
So you don't obsess over it. You just kind of let it go. So when all of a sudden it's in your face, you know that it's the real deal.
You have to be seeking non-attachment, I guess is the way to put it, without seeking it. You have to let go and it can get depressing when you don't experience something for a while, because it feels like you're disconnected. And that's true, because in Jungian psychology, when you're on the right path, when you're doing your life's goal or something like that, when you're aligned properly with your higher self, synchronistic messages pop all the time. and it happens like crazy,
Yeah.
like absolute crazy. When I started talking to Quetting 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, and just before we did our live stream together, and he's an awesome guy. I've learned to really enjoy talking to him, and while talking to him, so many synchronistic things that he's experienced, and I'll be like, yeah, that happened to me, or he'll post something and it'll pop up in a random feed on my wall, or something weird will happen that's synchronistic with him and then with other people. So it's like whenever I'm shifting into one of these things where I feel like I'm on the right path, synchronistic stuff pops. And it can be very subtle, little goofy things. It can be, I was thinking about Twinkies today, and my wife says, I don't know why, but I just felt like bringing home Twinkies. Goofy little things like that will just pop. And it's,
Yeah.
coincidences happen, but there's something about a synchronistic coincidence that is different. And it's not just that we notice it, it's the feeling we get with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like you'll know, and you'll know exactly why it's happening, and you won't question it. You won't have to doubt it. You won't have to be like, oh, that might just be because, coincidence.
Yeah.
There will be no doubt in your mind.
It's kind of like, because like if you just notice something as being weird, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? I mean, it's like, like I'm sure right now I could be
Right.
like, Yepson, call me on Discord, and he would call me because he's probably listening, right? That's not a coincidence. That's not a synchronistic thing. But if he wasn't whistling and he contacted me, well, that's not that weird. He'll contact me on Discord anyway. So that could have happened.
Right.
That's just a coincidence. But if we were talking
Yeah.
about something that he has no way of knowing anything about, something about him, if I was talking about him, I'm sorry to blow up Yepson's spot. For those of you who don't know, I know him on the side. If I was just talking about something to do with him that he's into, and he wasn't watching the stream, and he just called me on Discord out of the blue a few seconds after I brought that up, gee, that is weird, because now we're getting more specific, aren't we? We're getting more than just we're talking about someone, like speak of the devil you see his horns. Now we're talking about something that is really weird, really synchronistic. And then you have to kind of take that message, and I think this is part of that superstition part. We can sometimes take them so seriously that we dissect them too much, that we try to glean extra meaning, like we read into it, like you said, try not to read too far into it. You'll know what it means usually, like when it happens, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if it's right along the lines of whatever working you did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that tracks with the spell I performed the other night.
I think that's him now, actually. I'll bet you 5 cents that's him.
See?
It's him. All right. So he's like, I heard you talking about me. So yeah, that's pretty funny. So okay, so when we're talking about subtle manifestations and ritual, now that's a key, because a lot of people will contact me. That's like, I did a ritual. Let me fix this up here so you guys can hopefully hear me. People will contact me like, oh, Thorne, I did a ritual, but I got nothing. It was dead air. And the problem, I think, is that people expect a Hollywood special effects extravaganza. They expect, the walls to shake and candles to float around the room, and something that is so obvious that they can't deny it. So they either go with two things in their head. They'll say, I guess I'm not sensitive, or they didn't listen. It never occurs to them that maybe they're expecting too much, maybe, in a lot of cases. So how do you feel about that? Do you always get something unmissable? Or if it is unmissable, is it something most people would miss but you don't? Maybe that's the better way to put it. How would you describe it?
There's always, always, always a change in the energy in the room. Either it feels like there's something there. I don't see it. I've never seen anything. I've never seen a manifestation. But feeling the presence in the room, paying attention to my own mind, where it starts to go, depending on the entity. It could be really dark. Like all of a sudden I'll feel real angry out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, all right. So then I know, but then you got to separate that, because it's really easy to get lost in those feelings and get too excited, and then you lose your train of thought. You have to try to stay. Yeah, stay in the focus and just split. and try to split it. And that can be difficult. But there's always that feeling of something is happening, something is there. And then for a long time afterwards, it almost feels like I'm high
Mm-hmm.
and I've consumed no alcohol, no drug, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel high because it can be really intense.
I totally sympathize. I totally get it. I mean, so for a beginner, we were all beginners once, let's be honest.
Hmm.
The way that I learned to do what I do, and I tell this a lot to people in my mentorship classes, I make videos about it occasionally. For me, the biggest secret to especially working with spirits, but any form of magic really, is to role play it in such a way that you're feeling it while you're role playing it, and don't be afraid of, I don't want to say making it up, but don't be afraid of making it up while you're doing it. Do so respectfully. If you've never contacted any spirits before, be like, look, I'm gonna say to yourself, say to them, however you want to do a silent prayer, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do this ritual, and I am going to act like I think you are in this, or I'm going to act like you're there, or something. Just be honest and sincere. That's the key. Don't lie. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And then
Yeah.
play act, pantomime, role play, the whole thing from start to finish. What you have to understand is that magical ritual, even when you're advanced, if you just go into the ritual chamber or your living room, as the case may be for us, and you do your ritual as a mechanical operation where you're just like someone learning their lines in a play versus living them. I don't know. I've never taken an acting class in my life, but I have a feeling if I did, one of the things they would tell you is not to just read your lines and recite them, but to live them, to invoke the energy, the emotion, and the character that you're playing. So when I go into a ritual, if I just open up my book or I do it from intuition and I'm just going, Hail Lucifer, Lord of the blah, 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 and I'm just kind of reciting words and I'm going, I hope you're there bullshit, nothing's going to really play out, most likely.
No.
Whereas if I put on my robes or I go out into the wilderness or I do whatever and I fully prepare myself mentally and physically, to truly feel like I am doing something special, that's going to make manifestation that much more potent. That doesn't mean it's a requirement.
Yeah.
It just means that if you're looking for that wow moment, set yourself up for success by priming yourself, essentially, to have that experience. Yes, it's not maybe the most, what's the word? It's something that a skeptic would find rational because you're already playing it like it's real. A rational skeptic would say you're supposed to test it at all times. I get it. You have to test the spirits. I'm not saying you don't. But you can lean into the experience and make the experience happen that way. If you fully, and this is what I put in my book, Become the Maelstrom. One of the earlier chapters is living a magical life, and that's important, at least in the ritual sense. You have to be able to invoke this sorcerer persona. This is why it's so important to have your identity as a sorcerer, sorceress, mage. You need your magical name if you like those, or a sigil like I prefer, or whatever it is that is yours, that when you pull this out and you turn it on, the sorcerer is here. And it's no longer just Bob from accounting. Now you are, Babadon, the black flame, something like that. Whatever corny thing that you think is cool, you have to do that. So when you're doing your rituals and you have, so what kind of subtle manifestations have you had? Like you did mention you've had things like smoke, flame. So describe your three coolest, like, oh wow, that really just happened moments, if you can recall them. What would you describe?
The fire growing huge. I was doing a ritual and for like ancestral homage, and I was burning stuff, and I just was in the zone, and this huge. I mean, it just spiraled up, this flame spiral, and I do everything in my fireplace, so it's all contained.
Right.
And it just spiraled up. It was huge. I was actually, it took me out of it a little bit because I was scared. I'm like, this is gonna come out into my living room and set my carpet on fire. I mean, it was just, and I had a glass of water near me, and I threw it on there, and it let out one last like flame, huge, and then it was gone. Like as quick as it was there, it was gone. And I got chills, just major chills. That something was definitely there, and it took off out up through the fireplace. It's just,
I love
and I don't know
fire manifestation. I love it. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
It's so like
it was intense.
and it really is.
I'll admit that was it. Freaked me out because I thought it was going to set my whole place on fire.
I always have a little. I think I have one out here because I don't do them out here as much with my fireball now. I usually just use candles out here. But I have those quick little spray, like they look like little hairspray cans of emergency fire outer because, you know, hell forbid you're sitting in there and you're like fully entranced and it's boosh, oh, my whole living room or oh, my whole ritual chamber. Always have. I'm sure the spirits will understand if it's not a ritual item that's in the room. No, but in all seriousness, if you're doing, you know, pyromancy or anything to do with fire in your rituals, absolutely put
yes.
some sort of protection in place because I've heard.
Yeah, I've
heard.
Yeah. I have a fire extinguisher now, just one of those, you know, small fire extinguishers, and I keep it next to me just in case because that was the first time I had done something like that, and I was like, all right, it's time to buy a fire extinguisher just in case.
And a candle fire is another one of those fires that water is not a good idea on. I've seen them explode when you put water on a candle fire, so be careful. Like if you ever knock a candle over and it just starts blazing
don't
up,
do that.
Don't put water on this. Just put a towel over it.
The water.
No, water's like the worst thing.
Towel.
Like, a wet towel is fine. Like a wet towel put out just about anything. Just a damp towel, just so the towel doesn't burn and flame instantaneously. But yeah, that's not advice, by the way, in case YouTube decides to censor me as usual. They're getting really censor happy lately, YouTube. Oh my goodness. Gosh, man. It's freaking...
Yes, please be safe with fire.
Just please be safe with fire. And trust all authorities. Right? Please make sure you listen to every authority, not me. I am just an idiot. You hear me, YouTube? You hear me? All right. So we've got pyromancy, and I've got video upon video. That's one of my favorite because it's so obvious. You can invite a person, so long as they're not such a hardcore skeptic they don't believe anything, you can invite an open-minded person into my ritual chamber anytime, and 3 out of 5 times you will see a fire manifestation of something, either a shape or a pattern, or you guys have seen my videos. The fire in my cauldron is rarely less than 3 or 4 feet when it's really active. You know, when I get a spirit there, 2, 3, 4 feet, fireballs, the whole works. Yes. Now here's the funny part. Let me interject before we go on to your next because you have 2 more to go. Let me say one more thing. Okay. Generally speaking, spirits and magic tend to work through natural law. That doesn't mean that they don't bend or break them occasionally. It's that by and large, the times I've seen them bend or break it, I bet you if I was, you know, if I knew all the facts, maybe there was a rational explanation for what I saw. It's synchronicity again. You know, the fact that you're seeing a fireball at the moment that you said something, and then this fireball happens in timing with it, whether it had a rational cause or not, it's still meaningful. So when I tell you that my cauldron is nothing, I don't do anything special to it. It's literally just large grain sea salt that's been, you know, there's a couple different brands I like, with rubbing alcohol. Usually the higher percent, the better. And it will burn. And of course, as it burns, it gets hotter. And of course, that means that there's a potential for more flare-ups. But the thing is, I don't get the kinds of violent and really extraordinary reactions unless I'm doing a ritual around it. It will just be a flame with some spitting and some stuff. Once I get a spirit, I can feel it in the room. Once I start feeling that, the fire gets more and more intense and I feel this blast. Now, does that mean that there's something supernatural going on? If you're a scientist, no, because I guarantee you they would just go, oh, that's boiling alcohol. As a spiritualist, I will tell you, yes, but it's boiling it exactly the right way at the exact moment that I'm having this experience. And that's meaningful. Yeah. The same thing will happen to a bonfire, to a candle flame. That doesn't mean it will reach 6 feet up, but I've had candle flames go like that for a split second. I'm like, I can't explain that. I've never caught that on camera. I wish I did, because the 1 or 2 times that it's happened in my life, and I said that in my life, not in this week, in my life that's happened, I wish I had it on camera, because it was if you don't feel every hair on your body just go at that moment, I can't help you. Like, you're dead. But
Yeah.
again, it will
Yeah, and
happen
it
in
should.
response to
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. And always let yourself be, surprised and excited by stuff like that, because it is surprising and exciting.
Exactly. Um, so okay, so you had two more to go. So what's the next one that was wowzers? Like, holy cow, this is real. This is a real manifestation. What's the next one?
It it had to do with the wind, like you're saying, like with natural going through nature, going through the elements. Absolutely. Um, and just saying the right thing at the right time, and the wind picks up hard,
And you just
hard
know
gust, and the house, like the walls pop because it hits and
something.
hits the house, and everything settles, and it's just noise and wind. Like, all right, that's just kind of like an exclamation mark
Hmm.
on on the ritual.
That's one of the reasons why I like doing rituals in nature. Doesn't mean I always do them in nature.
Yeah,
It's not a requirement, but it's a rare treat, especially living in the suburbs of Long Island, New York, where it's like wall to wall people, to go out somewhere where you're natural enough that you can be away from people enough to do this without getting somebody walking their dog eyeballing you like your neighbor. But
right.
getting out in nature is special. And whether it's inside or outside, getting out into a natural environment where you don't have the normal control that you have can be really amazing, because you'll notice that the more in nature you are, yes, it's less convenient to have a big elaborate ritual set up, but it feels better not to. It's better to just make your circle
Yeah,
with stone, chain, wood, something. Erect a simple stone altar where you can put a fire or your candles or something. Let the wind be the voice of the spirits. Let the flame be the sign. Let the smoke, you might not be able to see it if it's night, but let the smoke be something that communicates with you. Let the birds in the trees that are sleeping suddenly going tweet, 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 let that be a sign. Let the wolf in the distance, let it all mean something. The neighbor's dog, the neighbor's cat. Let the fighting neighbors be a sign. Don't think that just because it's a human-made thing that means it can't be a sign. Are you kidding? Everything that we use, like a candle, is a man-made thing. Relax. It's okay if it's, if your TV just turns on all of a sudden, that's a sign. If a plane flies over, all of a sudden in the middle of your rituals, right in response to something you're saying, maybe that's a sign. Don't discount it just because another person or civilization could be responsible. Let it be what it is. Enjoy that experience. Revel in it, right? That's what you said before. Don't stop from feeling surprised, right?
yeah, yeah. Because then you don't want it to become like you never want to treat magic like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that happens. Like, wait a minute. It's a little bit more special than that.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be as mundane as, oh, my car started today.
Unless, of course, it's a dead battery that
There
something
you
that
go.
should, like, it's dead, right? Yeah, that's different. So, we got the first potential. Thank you very much for the super chat, Giant Scriven. Zion Scriven, excuse me, says, "Notice me, senpai." I love when people, oh, senpai, yeah, right. Thank you very much. I should get like Wedding has like a little bell and go ding, but I don't want to bite off his shtick too much. I should have maybe put something on my phone where it happens, I'll blast it like something funny.
Yeah, like the Reggaetron air horn.
Yeah, yeah, or what is it, like the John Cena thing? Well, thank you, Zion. I really appreciate it. That'll go a long way to supporting my work. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. For everyone who doesn't know, I will still respond even whether you do a super chat or not. I'm not that famous where I have to just use that, but I appreciate that. So Cole Smith asked, this is an important question. We'll get back to your third manifestation in a second. Have you worked with Iblis? No, I have not. I having been active in the community for a while, there's sometimes this assumption that I have a wide range of experiences with different spirits. I am not one of these people that plays Pokemon with spirits, though sometimes I try. It is fun. But I literally try to focus on the ones that are helping me at this moment, and I let them guide me to who to work with next. So no, I have not that doesn't mean that I wouldn't work with Iblis. It just means that, in case you're wondering, that's why I don't have like a gigantic stable of spirits that I've worked with and have all this stuff for. I don't. To me, that's not magic. I mean, if I want to fill in a dictionary of spirits, let somebody else do that. My job is to give you, like the story time video I did yesterday, where I'm telling you about things that I've seen, talking about ancient antiquity, history, things like that, which I can't prove but are meaningful to me, especially if you dissect them and like if you don't like some of the things I'm saying, but if you go by the core meaning of the story, what does this represent? What does that represent symbolically? And you take it from that level and experience things, you get the best experience. So no, I haven't worked with Iblis. I haven't felt like I've had to. But then also, let's not forget that a lot of these spirits, let's be fair, are masks, as Michael Ford says. I call them egregoric ego masks. He calls them divine mass, something like that. So to me, what we're talking about are archetypal spiritual consciousness that is, you have the source and you have the emanations of source. You have these different minds that emanate off. We are material minds. That is to say, we are spiritual minds, but we are invoked in the material body. Well, they're disembodied minds, and they express themselves to us, and we as humanity, with this imperfect connection that we have, using our culture will essentially make a mask, make a story, make an identity for them that resonates with our cultural needs. And so Iblis represents the cultural need of that culture, but more than likely there was dozens and dozens and dozens of other spirits that manifested from that same source, but wore a different mask for a different culture. So is it possible that I worked with Iblis without calling it Iblis? Absolutely. That doesn't mean that I won't ever work with Iblis. That doesn't mean that I haven't or that I have. So someone, Angry Finger, said facets. Good word. Think of it like a jewel think of it as a singularity, a single jewel, a singularity that's been cracked into an infinite number of shards and facets. And it's still one thing, but it's got an infinite number of facets. Well, some of those facets are big and important and impressive, and those would be what we're talking about. And I just noticed that your image just shrunk. There must be a bandwidth thing changing on your phone. No, it's not you. You have no control. I noticed.
Sure. Probably is.
I noticed that happens mostly with people on cell phones. Deific Mass. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you. She actually read Michael Ford. I haven't. She read it and is like, oh my gosh, like you guys would get along. You could talk so much. Yeah. So you have a third. I'll go back to the questions in a second. So you have a third. If you have a third manifestation to mention. If you do, if not, that's fine. Go ahead if you want to tell us one more story.
And it's another nature thing. It was lightning and thunder at the right moment, right overhead, and then it started to hail. I was like, oh, that got done.
One of my mentorees, one of my sort of students, he's a real nice guy. We'll just call him. I don't know if he wants me to say his name. He's kind of a private guy, but he was talking to me the other day, and he's very new at a lot of this. And he was talking about, like, he wants more experience. He wants to see things more. He doesn't know if he's making contact. And he told me the story about how he was doing a ritual, and he did it, and then I guess when it concluded or in the middle of it, I forget because my memory sucks for other people's stories. I didn't write it down. It wasn't important at the time. But he heard and saw like lightning and thunder within like 100 yards of his house or something like that. And I'm like, you're asking me to improve your manifestations when you're talking about you just did a ritual and it just however he described it, it was at just the right moment for it to have meaning. This thing happens. You need me to. You don't need me at all. You just need to notice it more. That's all. It just happened for you. That's for most sorcerers. That's a not a 10, but that's like a 8, 9. Like that's a That's a whoop. Right? That's a John Cena moment. The spirits heard me. Yeah, that's like the spirits giving you a super chat. So in all honesty, like tone down your expectations just a little. And go internal. Like that's what I was saying. Go internal. Just remember that you need to interface the internal with the external. You need to bring the objective and the subjective. Eventually, what is ascension except for making the subjective and the objective the same thing? That is what ascension is. When you are godlike, your subjective mind is the objective reality, and there isn't any difference between them. When you are an embodied, human being that is not fully enlightened, fully this, fully that. And you could be fully enlightened and not have that full integration. But to be a God means what your internal subjective world is becomes the objective world, and you can't tell the difference because what you think happens. Now, at that point, I honestly believe that we get bored without too much time, and we want to insert challenge for ourselves, and omnipotence, omnipresence, and omnipotence, kind of suck when you have all three. In fact, if you have any one of them, you automatically have all three. So having that kind of power, if you watch my Godhood for Dummies video, you can get rather, you know what I mean? You kind of want to be Bob in accounting again, as I said in the video. Because
that's right.
Like when you beat a video game, what's the first thing you do? Like when you've really beaten it, it gets boring, right? You want to start over and hit that sweet spot again. That's kind of what life is. Jason77, thank you very much for that $9.99 Fireball and Namaste style prayer hands. I appreciate that so much. That really goes a long way. Thank you so much, Jason77. He's hooking us up tonight. Thank you so much. So let me read some more. Do you have anything else you want to add to that little story? Was there anything else you want to mention? Was it during anything specific, or is it just it's happened to you a few times and you just feel like it's just really cool when it does?
That was the first time it happened so forcefully. I've intentionally done rituals. I've waited for storms to come in before because I like that energy. I like using that. I like, taking that in and putting it right back out again. But that one, I didn't even know there was a storm in the area, and it hadn't started to do anything, and just right at the right moment.
Just at the right moment. And there's nothing wrong. Like, again, remember what I said in the beginning, set yourself up for success, lean into success.
Yeah.
Don't make something artificial please don't make it artificial.
Yeah.
And if you do, be honest. Like whenever I do a personal ritual for somebody, I will employ pyrotechnics. I will employ things that are, stage stuff, but I'm very open that that's what that is, especially if they ask, if they know, how did you make that happen? Well, it's alcohol, it's a match head, I use flash paper, whatever it is that I'm using, I'm honest about it because I consider what I'm doing to be doing it correctly. I can't lie, if that makes sense. I refuse to lie about my practice just to make you go, wow. If I can't wow you with what I'm doing, then I'm not doing it right. So I've got to wow you with what I'm doing. And if you watch this, if you're a chaos magician, using flash paper as a send-off device, like you put your sigil on your flash paper and you use that as your poof, and it's gone. For some people, that's a very effective way to pop your intent. For other people, that's like too showy, and they don't like that. They want to do it the other way, and that's nothing wrong with either one. Just be honest about which one you're doing. So if you're going into your ritual and saying, well, I'm gonna do this with a thunderstorm coming because I'm hoping this will happen, so long as you add that to your validation scale and say, well, it was during a thunderstorm, so just having lightning and thunder during it won't matter. But if you say, if you say Baal, considering Baal is usually associated with Baal Hadad from the ancient times, Baal is, am I going to achieve this goal? Kaboom! Okay, I'm probably going to count that. So keeping that in mind.
If it's just like happening because that's what's happening, again, back to everything is not a sign. So, but if it is at the right moment, maybe. Probably trying to tell you something.
Probably kind of, sort of. And this is why it can be so important to find ways to record your ritual work, either video or at least go into your journal when you're done and write the highlights, because you'll miss communication sometimes. I'm not saying I do that every time, but I try to make my rituals something memorable when I do them, so that when I do them, I try to remember as much as I can, and that way. Okay, let me go into some of these questions. I see some popping up here. Let's go to Cole Smith first. Cole says, something happened that was similar to me when I was doing ritual work of Beelzebub from the Compendium of Beelzebub, and a fly appeared out of nowhere, and there was no other explanation. I mean, that is something, what I've seen many, many times, and it's not unusual but it is useful. Is you'll be, no matter what time of year, I've had this happen dead of winter, you'll be doing a ritual with a flame, a candle, a cauldron, and a gnat or a bug will just and like die. And it's like, oh, fuck, right in the middle of the ritual, right? It's really funny when it's in the middle of when it's in the middle of winter or something where it shouldn't be possible. Like, here's this gnat just woke up and just flew into the fire. And it's like, whoa, that's pretty creepy. But yes, absolutely. I've seen stuff like that. Not so much flies, because luckily my house is blessedly free of them. We get mosquitoes. We get those black West Nile with the white stripes on their leg. Like those little bastards, the Asian tiger mosquitoes. Those little fuckers. If I'll put some screenshots up on my Facebook someday when I get bit by one again. I get like softball size welts on me because I guess I'm allergic to them and not other ones.
Wow.
It sucks. All right, let's see. Paul Negrin says, I'm new here, just subbed, was watching the Walper. I will never be able to say that despite my German heritage. Walpersnacht. Sorry guys, I don't, forgive me. Live EA quitting, and he saw I did a thing. Thank you for coming, Paul. I appreciate that. If you have any questions or anything, just let them rip, and I will answer them as best I can. And I appreciate that. So Sam asked, there we go. So that's what I was trying to get to. Sam asked, would crushed charcoal and rubbing alcohol be okay? I am a pyro, and I've never tried that. Spiritually speaking, I don't think it would be a problem, but here's the thing. If you're inside, especially, and you're working with something flammable, you're going to have crackling, okay? Now, what I mean by that is I usually use regular sea salt in my cauldron for a reason. It's clean. It's also spiritually got purpose. It's a very clean substance. So when I make an offering to the ethereal plane, when I make an offering to the astral world, to a spiritual place, I know it's not going to be polluted with it. And that doesn't mean a bonfire is bad. It just means I like that cleanliness. But it also means that when it is clean, when I haven't used it for putting sigils in or something, it's less likely when it gets hot to crackle. That is to say, it's less likely to pop. And even when it does pop, the things shooting out of it are going to be just hot salt. And hot salt doesn't get hot enough to start a fire. Now, if you're using charcoal in your house, while I'm sure that will work, I'm sure it will probably also, when that alcohol starts to boil and does its thing, especially when it starts to dry out, you're going to have crackling and you're going to have embers shooting out that could start a fire. So just my hunch, I have never tried it, and I don't plan to. I use things, you could also use fire rocks, like those little glass beads. They're less spiritually special, but don't forget, glass is not a mundane object. Well, maybe window glass is, but the ancients thought glass was a very special gem. Don't forget. So you can use glass in your ritual. Just make sure it's that tempered kind that is used in fire bowls. So that or coarse sea salt is what I would suggest. Just so you know. Let's see. All right, I think we caught up with Zion Scriven says, if it catches your attention, it's probably an omen. Very likely. Not always, because, like you and I are pretty rational people, right? Like, I know you're into this. You've done
I try.
This. Right? We try. I mean, we try. We try. That's the key word, try.
I always put that, I always try to think of a rational explanation first before anything else. It's like, could it be this? But like I said, if you have that feeling, it's something else.
It's supposed to be personal anyway. It is supposed to be personal anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to be, something that has to be judged necessarily one way or the other. If honestly, this is why people will tell you time and time again, you don't have to do the big rituals to get the experiences that you're looking for. It just helps. Like Quentin and I were talking, I'm like, yeah, we could just sit on the couch and talk to a spirit. There's nothing hard about that. You don't have to do this elaborate ritual to get a spirit to listen to you. That's not how it works. It's people talk a lot about Christians and stuff, but it's not wrong. The way they do things when they set up their prayers and their different things, I mean, they do candle magic, don't they? When they do a prayer with a candle, isn't that candle magic? It's no different. It's just they're offering the candle to God instead of a spirit. There's no difference. So relax. You don't have to do this in a really weird, bizarre way. You don't have to go to these elaborate steps every time. It helps. I consider it like spiritual colon cleaner. It's when you do a ritual, you're kind of like, imagine you're spiritually constipated and you need to do a ritual to get that energy flowing in your body and in the external environment. It's a form of yoga, let's be honest. It's what it is. I bring this up every time. So yeah. So for me, I have a lot of good manifestations on my YouTube channel. Like I have not all of my rituals by any chance, but I've got several rituals available for viewing on my YouTube channel. Some of them are older. They're definitely more ghetto when I was just learning to get myself together camera-wise and stuff. But you can see on Soane of 2018, I had done a ritual experimenting with Nyarlathotep to get some things done. And you can see very clearly an example of that wind manifestation and fire manifestation, because they often go together when you have a bonfire, right? Usually the wind whips up the bonfire and it gets really cool. So it's a dead calm night. There's no wind whatsoever. And I was shooting for a while, and for at least several minutes of the video, you see there's no wind, there's nothing. I start making my commands, and as I'm making my commands, I'm feeling like the spine tingling feel. I'm feeling the spirit start to evoke through me, and the flame just, and the wind blows, and it's like, I'm feeling it, like, whoa, like this is cool. And don't stop. Like when you're getting that, don't hesitate. Don't get scared all of a sudden. Keep going. And just let it rip. And it was something else. So that's a good example. Then there's stuff where I was on live streams and I had like weird tendrils of smoke doing things around me. I had the incense closer to my head than I do right now. And they were like wrapping around my head, and they were wrapping around the camera a certain way. And it was forming skulls, and it looked like a spirit reaching out to grab me a few times. And I felt things in the room, but I was like, I'm on a live stream. I'm not doing a ritual. There shouldn't be anything in here, because I was still remembering you don't have to go that crazy, do you? So let's open this up to the people in the room. What kind of manifestations, if you guys are wanting to talk about it, what kind of manifestations have you guys had in your own practices? And I will respond to those. Just put them in bold if you can, like put them in all caps so I don't miss them as something you want me to read. Or of course you can do a super chat. I'm just kidding. I got to stop with that. I'm gonna get like so bad with that because it's to me it's funny and like people do it. And I'm really just kidding. You can put it in all. You can put it in bold, and I will respond to it, of course. So yeah, any ritual, any manifestations you've had, especially if you want to just share it and talk about it, like how you had it happen. That's really useful. So Sam A said, I just heard about salt melting and wasn't sure the outcome. I've never seen it melt, but I have seen it get stuck together in the bottom, which I assume means it probably melted a little bit, but it doesn't really get that hot. Burning alcohol doesn't actually, the flame gets hot enough after a while. If you put something over it, it will burn pretty hot. But if you're talking about the medium that it's burning through, just like a wick of a candle, you ever notice that a wick of a candle doesn't just all turn to black in seconds? That's because it's still stuck at the temperature that the oil or chemical or alcohol is when it hits that ignition point. So you don't have to worry about the salt melting unless it's held in suspension over the hot part, the flame of things. There's actually certain gelatins people use in special effects that are, I think, alcohol-based, and when they light it, it doesn't hurt their skin. It's literally just flame coming off of them, and it's just a little hot, and it's totally tolerable for at least a minute or something like that. So the alcohol in the salt doesn't really cause the salt to melt, unless maybe it's like so much salt and the alcohol burning is below it, but then it just goes out. It doesn't burn that long. So Creature of Legend says, so you just pour alcohol over sea salt and light it and it burns for a while. I mean, yeah, that's how I would describe it. It's just, you do it, of course, try to do it in a ritualistic way. I mean, don't just be like, over a pile of salt somewhere. This should be in your dedicated cauldron for these purposes, and you are essentially putting. It depends on the size of your cauldron, but I would say like maybe an inch of salt at the bottom, give or take. Mound it up a little bit in the middle, so it's almost like a wick for it to catch on. So that the flame tends to group together towards it a little bit, so it doesn't, because it can actually like sort of burn badly if you don't. And then pour in enough alcohol to just cover the salt, like not enough to be completely, 2 inches above the salt or anything, but just like right at the surface so you can see the alcohol, or less. Anything up to that is basically, I wouldn't do any more than that. It will burn for at least as long as a good stick of incense if you do it that way, in my experience. And usually my rituals go for, 1 or 2 sticks of incense, and I very rarely have to refill my cauldron anywhere through the ritual. And if you do, that's fine. Don't expect this to be like Hollywood, where all of a sudden it's going to burn for 3 days straight or something. Just expect it to be weird. That's all I'm going to say. If you're doing it right, expect something. You'll probably get something. And you just got to be capable of noticing it. Let's see. Yepson, oh my goodness. Stop it, dude. Oh my God. All this talk of salt has made me hungry. DH and Amy, your go-to pre-post ritual meals, asks Yepson. That is a fair question, and thank you so much for the super chat, brother. I'm sure that and it's 666. You see how much he put? He put $6. Ding ding. All right, where's the thank you. What's our go-to pre-post ritual meal? I'm going to let you answer first, Amy. Do you have a post or pre-ritual meal that you eat or have before, during, or after any of this stuff?
It depends. Usually, I try to eat healthy anyway, so something to, especially after ritual, something that to kind of ground you. I'll have toast or a little salad or something, just to bring myself back. Mm-hmm. And water, definitely water. Drink water.
And that's during, and, like, that's after, that's, yeah, because
that's more after, yeah. Mm-hmm. Before, I don't really have a meal per se, just again, water, sometimes alcohol, depending on what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Not getting drunk though. I wouldn't ever suggest that. Yeah.
That's not to say chemicals can't have their uses in rituals, but
true.
But let's.
Yeah.
I advocate being sober at least for a while until you get the hang of it. At least you'll know when it's time to start playing with things. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, and like with Andromalius, he likes hunger, so like if I'm going to work with him, I'll fast, and I'll notice that I get a lot hungrier after I'm done with the ritual. So that's interesting.
Sam, I'll answer your question in a minute. Sorry, go ahead. You're not being silly, Sam.
He's the only one I've experienced that one, so it was interesting.
So hunger, like fasting will bring that out of him and make the manifestation. I would totally understand that. I would say that it really depends. I am the type of person, because I don't like burping in the middle of a ritual or something. I sort of fast for like an hour or so before ritual. I don't like eating dinner, like a heavy dinner, and then going in there and being like, Belial, no, I'm not going to do that. Like that's not to say it never happens, but I want to avoid that. So I generally, like in most of the old customs, it's customary to take like a good bath first. Now I know that they had their reasons for suggesting that, but I interpret that as we need to be in a prime condition, so to speak. That doesn't mean that's how it always is. There's times I've waddled up to my ritual altar, totally depressed, if I haven't showered, fucking feel disgusting, and be like, I need your help, brother. I'm feeling like shit today. Oh my God. And just like totally like wrong. Like the way I would be like, what are you doing? Don't do a ritual that way. And because they are my friends, they will listen to me anyway, but I feel like shit when I do it that way. And then I have to but my point is that no, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the better you do it, the better they tend to respond, I've found. Like when I've done that waddle up to the ritual altar feeling like crap thing, I get crap. I don't get a good experience, right? So no, I don't eat anything prior to. However, as an offering, especially to a spirit that I'm close enough with that I feel comfortable invoking them, or they're eager to be invoked by me, or do a possession for, and I've done it on camera where I've been, heavily invoked, not possessed necessarily, but in that half and half state, and I've given them an offering by ingesting it. Most old traditions, you would take a portion for yourself and give the rest to them. Very rarely was the entirety of the sacrifice given away, because a lot of the times people would use that sacrifice to like feed their tribe, to feed their people, to, you know, that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you'd sacrifice a goat and you'd give, you know, a leg to the gods or the whole thing to the gods and keep the leg for your family, something like that. And so I'm of the same mind. When I leave out an edible offering, unless I feel, and I've done videos about offerings and packs, so in case you're curious, you can check. There's all these different valid ways to treat the offering. You can dispose of it respectfully. Yes, in a pinch, I've thrown it in the garbage with respectful prayer as I do so. I don't think that that's great, but they don't get mad. I've never had them go, "How dare you put my gumdrops in the garbage?" You know, that's never happened like that. You know, because they're not really there for the physical part. They're there for the significance you're giving it, for the energy you're putting into it, for the sacrifice that it represents. And a lot of the times, because we live in modern times, the things that we think of as special for a reward for them, like I'm going to give you soda pop, is just kind of like, yeah, that's cool and all, but that doesn't carry the weight it might have had 100 years ago. You know what I mean? If you're giving them wine and it's like the cheap cooking wine off the shelf, you know, I'm not saying they care, but do you care is what it really boils down to. They don't care what it's made out of, but what are you sacrificing when you do that? So
yeah, and it should feel like a sacrifice. It should be like, oh, I really want to drink this, but no, this is for you.
Or we do. Yeah, or we do. But yes, like you said, there should be that feeling like this is a 1906 Chardonnay, you know, or something. I'm not going to pour this on the ground. That should be the feeling, at least for a sacrificial offering. If it's like, you know, you're just setting the stage for them, you don't have to go that crazy. Yeah. I don't know why this turned into an offering question. So for me, no, that's my fault. So for me, food and drink, I will ingest some of the offerings sometimes, especially for some spirits that I feel called to do so. Wine, I almost always drink. If I offer bread like to Malphas or something, I'll usually eat part of that and burn part of it. But I'll usually do that if I'm going to eat it all. Afterwards, I've come out of that room and I couldn't eat for hours, and I've come out of the ritual and I'm just like instantly go to the pig out mode and I just go blom, 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 blom. It really depends, and it really varies. But yeah, that's something. So Yepson, I hope you're getting nudes ready, because I know you've got a big thing for nudes. And, you know, so feel free on Discord later to noodles, guys, relax. All right.
Oh.
He's going to send me nudes later. It's going to be pictures of his ramen. All right, let's read some of the comments here, because I see people talking. They want to ask you questions too. Let's see. Arada Kalandri. I kind of like that name. It's kind of a tongue twister for me for some reason, but I do like it. I often get stumping, strong noises during rituals in the floor, on the roof of the house. It's like signaling the presence. And that's very common, right? You even said it earlier, like you'll get the wind blow, you get the house creak, you know, that little poltergeist activity, like we're doing a seance. Yeah. It's not just a meme. That is exactly what happens on occasion. Camilla, I think we all know who that is. Dead silent night, 2 a.m., outdoors in July. She made her demands to a spirit. Demands. I don't think it was demands. I know her. She means that in a different way. The boom of a firework mortar breaks the silence. I think I know what she means by demands, because I know what that situation was, but yeah. Let's see. So Sam, I promised you an answer. So you said, I don't mean to sound silly, but how do you put the cauldron fire out safely? I've been using candles and just let them burn down. First of all, you know, you do what you feel is just and appropriate and respectful to the spirits. However, my cauldron is one of those like witchcraft style cauldrons that it's a cast iron pot with a nice handle and everything else, and it's got a nice lid. And so if the fire is still going when I'm done, which it usually isn't, because I usually go till it's out, but if it's still going at the time that I'm done, I take the lid and I just snuff it out that way. Just put it right on top. The best way to put out your ritual objects when they're burning, intentionally of course, is to snuff them. Like get a candle snuffer, like one of those little, it's like on a stick with a little boop, and you just kind of put it out. The main reason I don't recommend blowing them out is because it's messy. If you burn enough candles and you blow enough candles out, you'll notice it as you blow them out, it's like spitting. It goes everywhere. That doesn't mean I haven't done it though. I mean, obviously I have. Like obviously I've blown a candle out and it's sent a shower of wax all over the place. But I generally do it that way. Snuff them out, respectfully, is usually what I do. If you're using like a big pillar candle, that's a small pillar candle. If you're using a big pillar candle, like a prayer candle, letting that thing burn out could take days. I mean, some of those last, what, 20 hours, some of those big candles, more than that, even longer. So, yeah, that's not really optional. That's not really an option for me. I'm not going to I have candles that are like this big around. I'm not going to let that burn down. I'm just going to put it out, when I'm done with it. If I have to blow it out, I'll blow it out. They'll go out. Spirits will put your candles out. I've seen it happen. They'll put them out for you sometimes as a message, like time to stop, or they've accepted something. Angry Finger, I don't know what's going on. I see that you're putting messages and then they're disappearing. I got nothing to do with that. I don't know what you're saying. I saw you say something like autocorrect or something. I don't know what that's about. So hope whatever's going on, I hope it fixes for you. So Cole Smith asked, Amy K, what is your opinion on blood magic?
As someone who puts blood on the sigil of whatever spirit I'm working with, that's as far as I've gone. I've signed things with my blood, and I just, I don't necessarily gash my hand open. I have lancets, and I just poke myself, squeeze it out. And it does give a little extra oomph to your work, because I think it makes it a lot more personal when you do that. So I like it. But if there is more extremes, I haven't looked at the whole
like spectrum of blood magic.
Blood magic, because I'm sure it can get very involved.
It can. It definitely can. Yeah. As someone who
I just offer to the spirits.
As someone who's run through the vampire currents for a while and done things with blood magic since I was a kid, blood was almost always something involved. It's either, with some exceptions, there's some spirits that don't appreciate it like others do for some reason, or I don't feel appropriate. I don't trust the spirit. I don't want to give it blood.
Yeah, and you want to ask too. Like I always feel like I kind of want to ask, like, is it do you want this? Is this okay? And sometimes it's like, no, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. Like King Paimon doesn't seem to ask for blood ever. Like, I'm like, do you want blood? He's like, sure. Like whatever. He likes other things. He likes actions and devotions and loves art. You want to make a sacrifice to King Paimon that he will love, make something beautiful, a song especially. I was telling one of my clients recently, they were asking me like what to sacrifice to a spirit. I'm like, I can think of, for an artist or a musician, no better sacrifice than to create something like a picture or a song and never let anyone else ever experience it and give it as an offering. Burn it, destroy it, however you get rid of it, delete it, give it to them as an offering. I can think of no better offering to give to a spirit. Some people say, oh my God, you created this beautiful work of art and you destroyed it. Yep, that's the point. That's a sacrifice. But yeah, going back to blood, like anything, if it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing something, it maybe isn't a good sacrifice. I don't use blood as a sacrifice unless it is substantial. So if I'm going to make a substantial sacrifice, I'm bringing out a blade and I'm going to carve something into my body and let it drip. By the way, censor that, YouTube, I'm sure, but and I'm not recommending you do that, not medical advice.
Don't do that.
But, I disavow, I totally don't think you should do this. But of course, diabetic lancets are a safer way to do things. That's how I usually do my rituals, is with a lancet on my finger. I didn't always, though. A lot of times I just used a little knife, a little razor. When I was younger, I wasn't a cutter. Like, I wasn't one of those people who was like, ooh, I can't wait to cut myself. But I look forward to that part of the ritual. Go figure. Blood has always been a component. Blood has many, many uses. I see blood not as something precious in and of itself by itself. It's part of sympathetic magic. You are taking a part of yourself, which means this is a gateway, a conduit to you, to your physicality. And it contains an anchor to you and your energy, your spiritual energy in it. So when you do blood magic, you're essentially creating a permanent, or semi-permanent really, connection to whatever it is. And if you're giving as an offering, So let's say, like you said, you put your blood on a sigil. Now I generally do that, and then I burn the sigil as an offering unless I have a reason to keep it open. I don't think it's
Yeah.
wrong to burn if it's done with respect. I think that's a beautiful offering, especially like I have one of my familiars. It's honey and blood goes together. That's its offering. It likes honey and blood together, and I'll mix them together on the sigil, and it's a nice sticky red mess, and it's always disgusting. And I put it right in there, and when it burns, it's awesome. So people are asking me how was my Walperschnacht. It's still not quite time yet for me, but it probably would be very soon. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I never really intended to. It was like I'm going to be honest with you, it's the first time I've heard of this. And I don't really have anything that I want to do big, and I'm not going to tell everybody if I do. How about that? That's how I'm going to keep it. But I will say that, Coetting did make a suggestion on what to do for that in his channel, and that's the kind of stuff I always do, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again tonight. So maybe I'll see you there in the astral world, but if not, we'll see what happens tonight. So with blood magic, again, using it as a conduit to your own energy is the way I like to do it. And what I will do is I will try to work up into an emotional state or a thought focus when I draw the blood, if I can. It's not always possible, but let's say I'm doing, which I haven't done in a very long time, but let's say I'm doing some kind of a love or sex or lust spell of some kind. With all the things I've said about love magic, of course, if I can work myself up into, I don't like to use semen necessarily, obviously, but blood, if I work myself up into a sexual state and draw blood at that moment, I feel like my blood, and of course it is, if you check the blood, I'm sure there's hormones and things in it that aren't there normally. The blood is now charged with that energy, and so if I make that part of my offering, part of the service, then that energy is going to be inflicted basically and shared with it. So if you can put yourself into a certain mental state, emotional state when you're doing your blood work, it's going to carry into the working, for sure. All right, let's see.
Was that answered completely? I'm thinking so.
I think so.
Okay. All right.
Let's see. Alicita Torres says, "Hi guys, I cut the candles at the half this time because I changed the altar to my room and usually let the candles burn all night." Yeah, you can do that too. Like I've seen people, like it's not hard to cut a candle. It's just watch out. They sometimes break. Like I hate it when candle breaks. It's like depressing. Like when they crumble. Have you ever had a candle crumble when you're trying to work with them?
Yeah, like the little ones. Like yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was gonna do like a reversal and turn it around and carve it, burn it upside down essentially, and it broke. It just like, oh, I guess I'm not doing it with this candle. So
it's like the spirit was like, no, I don't want that one. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's like nah. Bigger.
The thing to remember about candles is many faceted. In the old days, they were made out of beeswax, which itself was considered a rather holy substance. It wasn't the piss poor wax we have today. But even if we are taking out that beeswax, because there's a lot of occultists that will say if it's not real beeswax, it's not a real candle. I understand where they're coming from. Believe me, I know what they're saying. But I don't think that you can't use simple little chime candles made out of crap wax that they get in a factory. The symbolism of a candle is very simple. Whenever I do candle magic, I hold it for a while, usually in my assertive hand, my right hand, my dominant hand, and I will feel like I'm drawing in either through one of my chakras or through the environment energy. If it's a specific intention that a chakra has to do with, I will sometimes put my hand over that, but not always. A lot of times I'll just sit here and hold it. And I will feel myself charging the candle with my intention. And I will visualize this candle existing in a universe where my intention is going to happen. And I imagine my astral self going to that place and exchanging candles, if you will. But really what I'm doing is I'm exchanging my consciousness for the consciousness of that world, really, is what I'm doing. But the symbolism of the candle is such that when you hold a candle, especially a little chime candle like this, and especially if you're hot-blooded like me, if you hold it for a little while, you'll feel it start to, even if you can't see it, you'll feel it just sort of conform a little bit to the warmth of your hand. You'll feel it taking on your energy. This is why candles are so useful, because they're just so they're so passive. They're so, I don't want to say feminine. I mean, like women are passive, but they're the soil. They're the womb of your intent. They accept that intent, and it gets imprinted upon them. And if you do this for a little while, you can feel like it'll get sticky in your hands. It'll feel a little squishy. When they can't, sometimes you'll even feel like you're, it'll become ergonomic because your hand will be holding it for so long. If you are focusing on your intent the whole time you're doing that, and just warming this candle with your intention, warming it, warming it, warming it, and just pushing your intention into it, the structure of the candle has now been, again, using sympathetic magic principles, it has now been transformed by your intention already. When you burn this candle down, you're releasing that energy into the astral and into the physical world to manifest whatever it is you desire. You can, of course, dress it with oils and bloods and whatever you feel will improve it. But since candles did come up, that I figured that would be something I would mention.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's fun. It's fun. Like you can sit there just like, and of course, use your fingernail and carve your sigil into it. Don't forget that step. I love that. That's fun to me. Like I like doing the Wiccan crescent moon, full moon, crescent moon shape into it. It just feels right because you're talking, especially on a full moon ritual. Like here you have this transition happening, and like, boom, it's in the candle itself. Generally, when I do that onto a candle, I will intentionally put it so that if I'm marking it into the candle with the moon shapes, I will put the crescent on top, then the full, and then the crescent below, so that as it's burning down, it's simulating that transition through the full moon period. Or new moon if you want. If you're doing a new moon, just, you can actually leave out that center circle. So if you're doing a new moon ritual, crescent, empty space, crescent, and same principle, but now you're doing it new moon. So Sam asks, what if I've referred to a demon as higher rank than what he actually is? I mean, he seemed to really like it, but what is that? But is that bad? No, it's not bad. I mean, the spirits aren't petty. Like, would you agree? Do you think they pissed off the spirits? Maybe I'm wrong. Do you think they pissed off
No,
the spirits?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it's.
I mean, and I mean, I've corrected myself, mid ritual. I'm like, oh, Prince, oh no, President, oh, but again, you don't want to get caught up in, oh, sorry. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's fine. It's not just fine. It's actually worse if you get weird about it, I think, because then it shows you're being superstitious. And not for nothing, those ranks, who made those up? Let's be honest. Yeah. It was a bunch of Christians in the Middle Ages who felt like they needed ranks in hell, and most of these demons were gods from other cultures. So and holy spirits or local spirits from their pop culture, basically. So relax. Like you're not. Mm-hmm. This is not. If you were going to offend them by calling them president when they're a prince or a duke or something, they should be more offended that you're talking about their demonic aspect rather than their original pagan origin. Shouldn't they? And they're not. They don't mind. In fact, they revel in it these days, honestly. It keeps them relevant. But of course, they tend to, anyone who does a cult long enough with the demonic side will, for whatever reason, if they're doing it authentically, and I don't mean like they're not fake. I mean, if they're being sincere and they're being honest with themselves and they're listening to the spirits, I found not all, but a large number of them are drawn to the original pagan source eventually. So if you're working with a spirit that, like Baal is an obvious one, if you're working with others, you will be drawn eventually to their pagan source. And they don't ask that you switch to the pagan source. They just want you to be aware of it. Like Beleth is Belet Siri from the Agent Canaan, but we call it Beleth, this demon, this masculine demon, and some people like put this cat thing on top of it too. But they've added these things to it, and it's become not the origin. And does the demon mind? No, because they're still working with us. They're still shaping our understanding of them. And that's, work with the current incarnation as best you can. Don't worry about it being right or wrong. If you get the name a little bit wrong, you are not the first one, and they're not going to set you on fire because you forgot to say King Paimon. You just said Paimon a few times. What they'll do is they'll remind you, and then once you know this fact, you'll feel when it's wrong to just say Paimon. You'll know that it's more proper to say King Paimon. You'll just know. You'll feel it in your gut, and that's what you have to go with. So don't be afraid, Sam. I think you're cool. You think you're cool. Let's see. Let's see. Let's aim one at you, my friend Amy. So Mike asks, do you burn the sigil after you put the blood on it and done with the evocation? So Amy, what is your, if you don't mind saying, what is your general practice? Do you like to burn sigils when you do this? What do you do? Do you put blood on it then burn it? Is it always the same? Does it differ?
It depends. Sometimes I'll leave them open for a while until I feel like the wheels are in motion, and then it's a then it's a send off. Then it's a burn, thank you, and then sometimes it's right away as a go forth, and do your thing. But it depends on the spirit. I had one that wanted me to bury it. There was no no burn, because I just had a feeling like, do you want this burn? I was like, no. Then I got this feeling like, no, bury it.
Yeah.
So I did. So
it'll differ. It'll definitely differ.
Listen. Yeah.
If you can.
You'll know.
If you can. Yeah. If you don't know, if you're not getting that good of a level of contact, or you don't trust the contact you're getting, which is normal too, go with your intuition.
Yes, sure.
Let's see. Let me set my whole house on fire trying to light another cone of incense. I gotta clean out my burner. That thing's been used a bunch. I've been using it too much. This is opium, by the way, so my house smells like an opium den. It's pretty cool. All right. Let's see. I saw a few more. So we'll go for just a few more minutes. I think we're getting to that point now where it's like we've been talking and our voices are shutting down. Cole Smith asks, what books do you recommend on psychic vampirism? Thanks for all your answers. I'm writing one. I don't know if I'll finish it, but I am writing one. I'm like a quarter of the way through. I'm getting hung up on one issue, though. It's not a technical issue. I can explain everything I need to explain. It's describing things in a way that, since vampiric culture is kind of sensitive these days, where there's a lot of people claiming ownership over what is and what is not a vampire, what's real, what's not. I don't want to enter that fray and get a whole bunch of people shitting on me because I'm answering questions in a way that is from my personal unique perspective. So there's a lot of like role players and a lot of lifestylers and a lot of this and that going on. And they can be really open-minded and cool, but they can also be fanatical and weird. And it's one of those things that one of the reasons I stopped associating with those people back in the 90s, early millennium, was partially because of that. There was this real hard push to say this is what a vampire is and everything else is bullshit and blah, 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 blah. Like if you look it up, there's websites where they're like, everyone else is a liar, mine is true. So there's people trying to own it because it's a pop culture icon and people just want to own it. That's one of the reasons why I like the left-hand path in general, Satanism and stuff like that, is because it is so taboo. Only the people with real big cojones who don't mind the open-mindedness of the community and allowing other people to be right, maybe sometimes in opposition to them, it's a much better community to be working through. So I am writing a book on psychic vampirism. I don't know of any that I would recommend because I haven't read any. Most of what I do, I wouldn't say is in a complete vacuum or bubble, but those of you who've been following my work for a while know that I am self-taught everything. I'm an autodidact, and I don't like start trying other people's stuff until at some point, if I trust them, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't like to just, well, let me do what this guy says just cause, I came into magic as sort of a self-taught, KO, demon sorcerer, or whatever you want to call it. And I only discovered like the Ars Goetia a couple of years ago. I only started working with these things recently. But I've already had experiences with all this. So I don't know how else to explain it. Someone just recently asked me like, what would be your resume? And I said, my resume would look like a middle finger, just like this. And then it would say, but check out my work. That tells you everything you need to know. So I don't know what my resume would look like. And if that person is watching that, I didn't mean that nastily. It was literally just my edgy 80s guy telling you to fuck off. But not me personally. Aaron Phillips says, mine was intense. I really pushed my imagination into reality. And DH, I guess he's talking about Walpurgisnacht. I'm going to find out what the English translation of that is and just use that. And DH, you was awesome. I'm reading your book, Maelstrom. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Okay, so Conjure Witch asks, question, what does blood offerings do for spirits? Amy, do you have an opinion on that, or what do you think? What does the blood do for them, if anything?
In my experience, I feel it's really personal. It's like, this is from me. Like
Mhm.
you're talking to me. And there's like, I like having that, you know, it's like, wow, I lost my train of thought.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. But I think I got you because it's like
um,
you're opening a conduit between your energy and the
yes,
spirit. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So it is like signing a letter. It's your signature. It's your DNA. I mean, it's
Yeah.
100% from you offering.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like you went out and bought, incense at the store. This is you. And I will actually put incense, I will put blood on the incense. I will put blood on the candle.
Yeah,
I'll
I do
put blood
that.
on the sigils. It really depends on how much I want to finger paint that day. And,
Yeah.
really is what it is. So, you can also store, I haven't done this. I keep meaning to do it. You can actually, if you want to make blood ink, you can get, what is it? Something tartar. It's basically a type of acid that's used. I forgot what it's called, but you can use that with a few drops of your blood and water and mix it together, and it will keep it from clotting and becoming a mess. It just turns into ink.
Okay.
I will try to find out and put it in another thing at some point, but that's what I've heard. I got it
Good idea.
I got it in my magic cabinet. And I never use it. Let's see. I think we're getting near the end here. So I'll answer that question too. What does blood offerings do for spirits? Like you said, you're giving them a piece of you, but what you're really doing is you're showing a level of commitment. You're opening a conduit to your own energetic field, your own biological energetic field. It's a sign of trust because since it is a sympathetic system of magic, if you're giving someone your blood, they could theoretically use that to screw you. Now, there's a little bit of misunderstanding because some people say, oh, all they need is a few drops of your blood and they can do things to you. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it is a connection to you. No, in the sense that if you like tripped and fell and a little bit of your, you got a scrape and they found that blood, that doesn't mean they can death curse you to death in 10 seconds because it's not instantaneous poison death device. It is just an anchor to you. And you don't have to use blood for that. You put an anchor in your environment. Blood is just one way, and it's a very good way because it's very direct. But it's not like a death warrant. It's not, people will say like, don't ever use blood because it'll kill you. And no, I'm not saying you should use it in a curse. Like definitely don't, like if you're putting a poppet or if you're making a medicine bag or something, and you're putting like, especially if you're leaving it as a present, one of my favorite things to do again is I'll take candle wax, but not candle wax. I'll take it off those cheese, things that it's really soft wax, and I'll mold it for a while with my hatred and my attention. I'll go, fuck you, you son of a bitch, and I'll really just push it into this, and I'll put some blood in it sometimes because I'm a real fucker, and I'll put it in that, and then I'll hide it, like I'll stick it under I'll put it somewhere. I'll stick it somewhere where they'll never find it, and just let that just ooze my hate for as long as it can, and at some point it'll just disappear. But be careful because if you're putting blood in something you're leaving in the environment, you're attached to that. You're potentially attached to that. So I actually don't always use blood because I'm worried sometimes that maybe I don't want that coming back to me as a conduit. There is a chance, in my opinion. But I'm usually one of those people, like I say, I'm not scared. So I usually just do what I feel is right. There are times when I feel it's right to use blood, and there's times when I feel like it's wrong. And I go by that intuition. It hasn't let me down. But if you're starting out, follow the basic rule of don't put blood on anything you don't want coming back to you. That's the 101. Don't put blood on something you don't want coming back to you 100%. As long as you're cool with that, you can use it with whatever you want to use it. All right, let's see. So I think I got just a couple more. Cole Smith, I appreciate you. He says, Walpurgisnacht. Walpurgisnacht is the right way to pronounce it. I appreciate you, my friend. So let's see here. I think we're getting close. Let me see. I think I'll answer one more question for me, and I'll see if there's any more. Sour salt. Camila's random let us know it was sour salt that I was trying to find. That tartar. It's called sour salt for the blood for making ink. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's see. So there's one last question from Aaron Phillip. DH, what does path working really means? this was something that a reviewer caught me on. Again, because I'm not the most hardcore read occultist until recently. I've only started my research into the wide world of known occult recently. A lot of the stuff I did before was done differently, I'm just going to tell you. So I didn't really, when I wrote the book, Become the Maelstrom, I had 3 sections. I had foundation, methodology, and pathworking. And pathworking was, to my mind, it's a method of, you are introducing yourself to a system, you're working through it, and you're making contact with spirits and getting started. That is an okay definition for pathworking, but a proper definition means there is a defined beginning and end, and you go through this path to achieve a goal. So, for example, you can pathwork the Qliphoth, for example, or the Sephiroth. You can work through them one by one and properly, investigate each sphere and learn from them. When you're doing the Necronomicon, that's a form of pathworking. You're supposed to walk each gate in turn, and each one for a period of time is meant to teach you about things. And so that's what real pathworking means. So in my book, when I use the word pathworking, it's a loose meaning of the word pathworking, just so you know. But maybe in a future version, I'll just change that so it won't be pathworking. It'll just be something else. So Amy, I think we're good. I think what have we been at for an hour and a half, just about? Or 2 hours? 2 hours?
Okay.
Wow. Well, I guess we've been doing this for a while. Yeah, about an hour and a half now. So,
Wow.
do you have any further things you want to bring up? I know you're getting tired. It's time for you probably to do stuff. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we take off?
Fancy. I think we've covered it. I mean, there are other topics, but that could be for future times.
Sure. We'll have you on again. We do have fun having you on. So anyway, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on and watching this stream. And it's fun to do these right now because there's not a lot to do. We're all kind of still cooped up mostly for at least another week. I think you're going back to work pretty soon, but still, you're probably going to be home a lot anyway because you'll go to work and come straight home and probably still social distancing and all that. So everybody, please be cool. Cole Smith, I have several books out, but yes, I appreciate that one. That one's a tough one. I appreciate that concern. It's going to be a pain, even though there's good stuff in it. I want to release it, but maybe I'll call it. If you guys have any suggestions what to call it, other than a vampire book, but still gets that out so that people know that that's what it's about, let me know in the comments or whatever, and I will find it later and I will consider it. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys being here. I just opened up a Teespring store if you're interested that has t-shirts, but really what's cool is it's got ritual mats and things like that there. So there'll be more added as time goes on. So if you guys want to check that out, that'd be a cool way to support me. Check out my books. Everything's in the description of the video. And I have a Patreon if you want to look at that. I do have a mentorship program that is still going strong. So love you all. Had a great time. Amy, thank you so much. And I'll have you on again. It's always great seeing you.
Of course.
Okay, and
Yeah,
darkest
anytime.
blessings to you. Thank you. All right, I will be cutting the stream right